Welcome to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, the podcast covering all things soccer in the Queen City. So get in touch, soccer fans. Email us at feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com. Now, here's your host, Nick Suberly.
Hey, what's happening, CSTers? Welcome to episode 129 of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Glad you're with us here on this fine Monday evening. FC Cincinnati wraps up their homestand with another big win, this time over the Charleston Battery. We'll take a look back at what was an exciting game for the home crowd there at Nippert Stadium. We'll also take a look at what's in store for the Orange and Blue coming up this week. They're back on the road. They go to Atlanta United 2. And they'll also take on the Tampa Bay Rowdies down in Tampa over the weekend. So a lot to get to here this week on the show. We want to hear from you, though, FCC fans. Get in touch with us on the King's Hammer hotline at 513-399-KICK. You can also hit us up on Twitter at Cincy Soccer Talk. And, of course, as always, our email is feedback@CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com.
Captain.
Hey, we've got a special episode captain this week. It's like family here tonight, wearing the armband of this episode of CST. That's because it is family. So let's give it up to Segan Sagai, the mother of our own Yosef Sagai, who is our episode captain this week. Segan, thank you so much for supporting us here at CST. For more information on how you can wear the armband for an episode of CST, you can log on to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. Well, because Segan decided to support the show, we thought it would be okay to let Yosef back on the program, and he joins us now. Yosef, welcome back to the show. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good now that you're here, of course.
Good to hear, man. I can't believe the turnout we had at the game this weekend. I should be used to it by now, but I want to thank our Lord and Savior Dale Earnhardt for making sure that we stayed dry through our battle on the pitch this week. So we got 90 minutes of clear weather with a lot of threat of rain, and I'm really happy we were able to leave dry and with a victory, of course.
Somebody sat on the right side of the Bailey this week.
That's the voice of Brian Weigel, who's been getting a lot of flack because he hasn't been to as many games this year. All of a sudden. Ouch. Yeah, I have no room to talk, Brian. I think you've been to more games than I have, but we're glad to have you back on the show. How are you, buddy?
Not bad, but I promise not to kick anybody in the face like Italigera this weekend. That's just the only thing I can promise. No, I'm glad to be back. Yeah, I am alive, contrary to popular belief that Brad and I are the same person and not two separate entities. So, but yeah, I got to get to a game soon. Life's gotten in the way, but podcasting is fun, easy. I can do it at home. So just threw a little Brian in bed. So let's rock out for the next hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to getting your take on what went down over the homestand for FC Cincinnati. Of course, the big win over the weekend against the Battery. Last but not least, our I guess we can call him our de facto beat writer. I mean, he's the guy who goes to training. He was there today. We welcome back to the show Rob Pierce. Rob, how are you?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks to Uncle Sam for my vacation this week, allowing me to get down there. You see these scars behind me. I'm trying to spice it up here in the show. This is our office, and it's coming along slowly. Maybe one day this room can be like Boston's. I don't know if anybody's ever been to the Biltmore, North Carolina, but you know how you only see about half the rooms there, and if you pay a fee, then you can use the headphones and then listen to what the tour guide is saying. That's going to be Boston one day. I think he could charge admission now if he really wanted to. So that's what I really aspire to become here in our office.
Stop sucking up. It's not that cool.
Man,
I'm joking.
What am I, chopped liver with my setup back here, Rob? Man, all right, fine. I see how it is. I will say this: the evolution of Rob's, we'll say, studio has risen drastically. I mean, it started off with like the Hello Kitty headphones, the pink headphones, and now we've slowly worked into getting some stuff behind you. So, no, we kid because we care, Rob. But
I'm glad to be back.
Yes, we are glad to have you back. Obviously, we like to kick things off with our best and worst. So I'll start with you, Rob. Give me your best and worst of the weekend against the Charleston Battery.
My best is that this was not the. I'm kind of taking a team approach here. I'm going to take some quick hits on some individual things and then let you guys dive into that. But this was not the same kind of passive match that we saw from FC Cincinnati the last few matches. This was the match that you want to see from a first place team that has as much talent as FC Cincinnati has, playing at home against a Charleston team that was trying to climb their way up in the first, and FCC gave them a pretty hard shove away. I'm looking at Nas had a game. It was great to see Alashe make his first start. The back line was pretty impressive. Like I said, just some quick hits, and I'll let you guys kind of take it from there.
I'll just take everything, Rob.
So, like, he took all the best there. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'll throw it over to you, Joseph. What was your best and worst?
I'd say my best actually was Blake Smith quietly having a great game. I think a huge part of the team being successful is the overlay they've had on the wings. Last year, how many times did we say, I'm sick of this team being on the wing and hoofing a ball in to the middle of the box as the last outlet? So I'm very excited that he had a good game. Worst. It's tough to have a worst after this week. I don't really know if I have one. I had a lot of fun this weekend.
All right. I mean, that's fair. That is fair. Bri, how about you?
No, it has to be Alashe, in my opinion.
You're talking about best, right?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely not worst. If it was your worst, then you blind, man. But yeah, I think Alashe coming in his first appearance for FC Cincinnati, first start. Just, I don't know if you could really have had a better debut unless you scored a goal, but I'm sure we'll talk about him later when we discuss the game. But man, I felt a lot of positivity coming out of him, and just seeing him looking comfortable so early in his time here at FC Cincinnati made me feel great. Worst, I think it has to be that Adi hasn't scored yet, but that's because I'm rooting for him to score when it matters. I hope he's gonna use it as extra motivation. Like, I'm a realist, guys. Like, scoring 3 sub appearances, whatever, that's insane. But you saw him this weekend that he was trying everything he can. He had 3 really great chances in that game. So it's a worst, but also it could be a pretty good thing in the future.
You're thinking quite along the same lines as Matt Imholt in our YouTube chat. He says his worst was the own goal from Charleston because it robbed Addy of his first goal for the team. He would have had it tap in. So
I kind of wanted to pick on Alashe for my worst.
Oh,
in the 48th minute, it looked like I hit, how I hit my pitching wedge. But no, I'm joking. He had a good game.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things of how he played on Saturday night, I'm sure he's looking back. It took a bobble on that fake turf, right? That's what happened.
For sure, exactly.
He's going to the school of Ted Lasso, where that was actually 3 points, and we won 6-0.
There's my Yosef. I missed you, buddy.
Oh, that is great. My best. I just liked seeing the midfield get back to dominating ways. We saw it a few weeks ago against Nashville. They struggled. We saw them not do well against Penn FC, but to come out and really kind of limit Charleston to not a whole lot. I mean, outside of a couple good tackles in the 18 and obviously the shot off the crossbar, I don't really remember Charleston being all that threatening in the match. Now, I could be wrong about that. I'm sure we'll debate that here in a minute. But for me, my best was the overall play of the midfield. I don't want to highlight any one specific midfielder because I think all of them played well in tandem. My worst, man, probably the kick to the face to Patty Barrett and the referee standing, 5 feet away and no call. That's to me, how do you miss that? I mean, you're standing right there, and the referee almost seemed to dispute what had actually happened. I mean, there's video evidence of him getting kicked in the face. So that's was my worst. So we want to hear from you, though, folks. Get in touch with us at Cincy Soccer Talk. You can get in touch with us on the King's Hammer hotline. Let us know where your best and worst are. 513-399-KICK is where you can get in touch with us and have your say tonight here on this show. Well, with the win over Charleston, it capped off a 6-match homestand. A homestand in which, out of a possible 18 points, FC Cincinnati racked up 16 of them. That's pretty darn good. They continued their unbeaten run, 13 unbeaten now, guys. We knew this team had the potential to be a really, really solid team. I don't think we saw or foresaw such a run through the meaty part of their schedule here, or a part of their schedule, I should say, this season, guys. So let's talk about the homestand as a whole. What really stood out to you? And now that you see how they finished it, do you kind of go back and say, man, wouldn't it have been really nice if they would have just held off Nashville for just 5 more minutes?
Well, Subs, let me stop you there, pal. You have to remember, we have a $2 million striker. We have the highest payroll and all. Oh, sorry, Louisville fans. There's all your excuses. Hey, they got it done. It hasn't always been pretty, but they found different ways to win. This weekend, they somehow scored 3 goals in a match where, in my opinion, their offense wasn't spectacular in the final third. So, I mean, I still feel like they haven't even put their best soccer together, and they're putting together these amazing streaks. So I think it has to show a lot of fear. We're not dropping points when everybody in the East, it seemed on Saturday, dropped points to us. So I think it's on the guys, it's on the great crowd, and especially on Coach Koch for finding different ways to win. So it's been very exciting run.
And more impressively too, Rob, is the fact that Charleston came into that match on their own unbeaten run. I mean, they hadn't trailed in quite some time either. I mean, they were on a 11-match unbeaten streak.
Yeah, that's right. What I look at, if you go back to the homestand, is you're not going to teams, even teams as talented as FC Cincinnati, they're not going to pump in 3 or 4 goals a game, and they're not going to cruise every game. They did that against Charleston. They did that a little while back against Richmond. But they had to grind out a few results, which is what good teams, which is what first-place teams need to do. And that's what really impressed me the most, is they got the results when they needed to get them.
Joseph, hop in there. Let's talk about the homestand and your thoughts overall.
It was great to see us slowly. There's always in the back of my mind that games in hand debate where teams had upwards of like 3 or 4 on us, it felt like at times. And then slowly over this 18-point stretch, it's dissipated to practically nothing. And I just love the gap that's increasing for this team. Brian noticed actually something pretty funny on Twitter. I don't want to steal your thunder, but the space that we're creating against these Eastern teams is great. And I mean, it's the statement of, I know it's not going to be relevant for quite a while, and I don't want to count any chickens before they hash, but the statement of leading the league in points, East or West, is something that's really attainable. And before this homestand, we're behind a couple Western teams.
Yeah, that's a good point. You want that home field advantage, and this stretch did a huge part in at least getting the Eastern. At least I think what Boston made mention that we only need like 1 point to at least guarantee us a playoff spot. And then, I mean, like 10 or something to guarantee a home game or something like along those lines, like 60 points maybe.
Yeah. They're not too far off. They're certainly not too far off. So
and when you can, I mean, if you can keep putting these points together, it gives you more breathing room if we drop away results, which is going to happen. I mean, we still got some tough games out there.
Yeah.
So a little breathing room.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, you got some guys who are new to the squad that got to make some home debuts. They got a chance to knock some rust off. We kind of touched on it a minute ago. We finally saw the debut of Fatai Alashe getting the starting nod for FC Cincinnati in a position where you've got some guys who can really play that role. Kenny Walker can play there. Michael LaHood can play there. But with the injury to Richie Ryan, LaHood's probably played maybe more minutes than I think even Alan Koch had expected him to this year. Obviously, we know Tyler Gibson's still trying to get back into the swing of things too. So I think the fact that FC Cincinnati now has a chance to get some experience at home, get these guys feeling good about their new, the new scene here in FC Cincinnati. I think Alashe, let's talk a little bit about how he played Saturday night, because for never playing with these guys before, it didn't really feel like he was the new guy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He did an excellent job controlling the pace and leading the build-up. The passing was crisp. And he had that chance in the second half that we alluded to earlier. And it's great to see somebody kind of take the pressure off of Michael LaHood now that Richie Ryan is hurt.
Okay, so like you're talking about his passing, Rob. There's a difference in when we look at these defensive midfielders. Okay, you had Kenny Walker who had 91% passing, and then you had Alashe with 82%. And you're like, oh yeah, Kenny must have had a better game. Well, they both did different things. Where Kenny kind of went more side to side, control, slow down the game when they needed to. Where Alashe, 24 of 34 of his passes were forward, and I'm not talking about like little 5-yard dinks. I'm talking like he was literally opening up the play with these great through balls. I think there's a part in like the 30th minute where he sprung Ledesma from the left side of the field to the right. Unfortunately, Ledesma couldn't get the ball settled for a shot, but I mean, I just felt like he added this whole different dynamic that we haven't seen out of our defensive midfielders this whole year. We looked to play a 4-2-3-1 at the beginning of the year. We moved to the 4-2-3-1 in this match, and it looked like a completely different group of players out there. I know that the wingers were a little bit different, which we'll talk about later, but I mean, I just think he brings that's something else. If he can keep playing more and more and getting comfortable, I mean, he could be just the biggest difference maker in the entire league when we get into playoff time.
And I didn't realize this too until I saw this stat come across on social media today, Joseph. But Alashe, not only did he manage the midfield, did a good job of making forward passes from the deep defensive position, but he also won the ball by being fouled and controlling that tempo.
Yeah, he was forcing defenders to make a mistake and gain us some good spots on the field as far as free kicks or possession. But I go back to a little bit what Brian said earlier, that we had rolled out this formation before. And a huge part of that is, hey, we have someone who's ready. The main gripe was how many of our passes were backwards. Mm-hmm. How many of our passes weren't really developing play. And it was clear you had a lot of those gasp moments where, hey, we were one step away from a goal or a good chance on that didn't necessarily connect, but those are the kind of passes you're willing to miss. I also thought this time around the roles were more defined for the players, as far as obviously everyone has their position, right? But the roles were more defined in that who's going to be forward. And it really showed on the second goal where Nas had the assist to Bone. Bone, Ledesma, Welshman, and Nas had a pretty good role. Fatai and Kenny played up at times, but I felt like we were more cohesive because the people who were focused on attacking were attacking, and it allowed the back defensive defenders to work the ball well because we had the field spread out well with our attacking presence.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. How many times have we talked on the show that Nazmi is better when he just needs to focus on getting forward? And I felt like he was a huge difference maker. Yes, was the weight on some of his passes off at times? Yeah, but I still think this was one of his better games. The one thing I think we kind of had to worry about, and I don't know if we want to diverge off this point, is, we still weren't perfect. And that kind of comes with, we had Bone out on the right wing. He's not technically a winger. Ledesma, I guess they're both kind of switch sides sometimes, but Ledesma out in the wing as well. I think that they're still trying to figure some things out. You saw Welshman, for example, drift wide. I think he had like 3 crosses, a couple through balls that just didn't connect. Of course, that might be rust, but there's still things that we're trying. And I think if we can kind of build on all these, I think it's another weapon in our arsenal that we can beat some players. How many times did we see in this game that like Charleston just didn't have an answer? Like they look so frustrated, they're dejected just because they couldn't figure out what we were doing. And they couldn't stop us, and that's something we haven't seen in a while.
I think too the big part that I think that led to that dejection, I guess, from Charleston, Bry, is the fact that they hadn't trailed in quite some time, and the fact that the FC Cincinnati got the early goal to get up 1-0, I think that kind of set the tone. I think that getting on the board first allowed FC Cincinnati to maybe not sit back, but I also think that once they got up a goal, they didn't they didn't just sit back and let Charleston work the ball around. I mean, I felt like they continued to press and force Charleston into mistakes. Whereas maybe in games past, I go back to the Nashville game. Obviously, they scored in the first 5 seconds, so that changed a lot. But I felt like they sat back and let kind of Nashville dictate things. Whereas, once they got that goal, I don't feel like Charleston ever really got into it.
I mean, that's how both goals came about for FC Cincinnati. Is even though if we turn the ball over in the final third or whatever, we'd pounce back, we'd get the ball back, and we'd put them in a bad situation. That's how Ledesma got his goal when he had a tough pass to Hoyt, and he got the ball back, scored, and then of course on the counter there. So that just like almost like a never say die attitude. I know that's a tough thing to measure, but yeah, I was very impressed with just how they never gave up on a lot of those plays.
Yeah. Obviously, Emery Welshman makes his return to the club after his suspension. Played about, if my memory serves, about 70, 75 minutes. It might have been a little bit less than that, but had some chances. I felt like he was a little rusty, having not had played any games in a few weeks. But obviously, everybody very excited about Fernando Adi. And I think for the first time, we really had a chance to see what this guy is going to be capable of. Rob, we saw him with chances in the box, just couldn't get him finished. But I think we're starting to see if this guy starts to play more and more and more minutes, I think the goals are just going to come.
Yeah, he's getting closer. I think eventually he's going to get one. He had 2 pretty good looks that just didn't go his way, and that's going to take. It's just going to take a little more time meshing, with all the parts in the field. As we've said in weeks past, this doesn't just happen automatically. It takes a little bit of time. But I wonder though if if and when he'll be starting. His stamina doesn't seem to be quite up to par, I guess.
Yeah, which we will be talking about here in just a few moments after you had a conversation with him today there at training. Before we get to that, I just want to take a look at some interesting numbers. If you go back and you look at the last 3 champions in the USL, right? Louisville last year, through 24 games, they only had 47 points. Did I say 24 games? I said 24 games, right? I think that's what I said. The Red Bulls the year before that, through 24 games, had 53 points. The Rochester Rhinos, remember them? Oh, is it too soon? I don't think so. 53 points through 24 games. Right now, through 24 games, FC Cincinnati's got 51 points with a 2.125 points per game average currently. So it's an indicator. It doesn't mean anything. But I think the signs are trending upward, obviously. I think that the fact that they're leading the USL in points per – I believe in points per game. If it's not points per game, I know they have the most points in USL right now. So can we draw anything from this, Bri, or is it once playoffs come, everything's up in the air?
Well, we always love to be towards the top in points, and that's how you win things. But I think when you look at it, we're top 5 in both offense and defensive categories in the USL, and you really saw that this weekend, especially on the defensive side, where I think Charleston had written down here. I think they got into I call it kind of like the defensive box. You have your 2 D mids and your 2 center backs, and that area in front of the center backs behind the D mids. That's where we were giving up a lot of chances earlier in the year, especially to the first half versus Pittsburgh, especially to Louisville. And Charleston was really never getting in those positions. Yeah. And I felt that was a key strength for us. So, I mean, if we can keep kind of doing that, keep those guys out of there. I mean, outside of, I think, a turnover and maybe a long, low percentage chance, I mean, we really didn't concede much in that area. And that's a sign if we, of course, we still have to play 2 D mids to make that justifiable. But I think that's a really positive thing is we're starting to become kind of what Rochester was, what Charleston was, what Pittsburgh was, they're early in the year when they're just really tough to break down. And now if we're especially tough to break down and we're scoring 2 points a game, that has to be, scaring the bejesus out of Pittsburgh and Louisville and all these other fans out there.
Real quickly, Joseph, was that the best game to date for FC Cincinnati?
Ooh, I would say, man, I definitely this season, I go back to the 4-goal Jibby game, but I didn't feel like I did after that game like I did about this game, where it was a fully complete performance that gives not I shouldn't say that, but it was a complete performance against a quality side that we all around, I overlooked it in the past saying, Pitt would be a huge, the two Pitt games would be a huge test for us. This team is a good team. And what's been the knock on us going for several years, in fact, since the team's inception, is that we're losing to teams. We can beat the Torontos of the world, but we're losing to the teams that we're going to actually play in the playoffs. And for Charleston, who's already having a good run of form, to come to our house and lose bodes well. So I feel pretty good. Yes, is the answer to your question.
He ignored the quickly part, but that's okay. We love you. How about you, Rob? Is that the best to date?
You can make a case for it. It would certainly be up there. For me, I take the Richmond win, that 4-0 win some time back. But I mean, given the significance of this game, and given that it was against Charleston, and the just pure significance of it, you could certainly make that case.
Last but not least, Bri.
Oh man, I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that question. Very good game, not our best game. I don't know if I can put our best game out there because I still don't think we've had it yet. But if we can figure out just that final, that final third of the field, the final, even like inside the 18, if we can just figure that out, I think it's going to be just incredible for us.
And I don't know if I missed this during the best and worst, but we didn't mention Ledesma picking up his yellow card, which means he will not be available for selection on Wednesday night against Atlanta United.
Thank God, a meaningless game. I mean, what?
No, but Ledesma, obviously he's going to be sitting out this one due to yellow card accumulation. Probably for the best. There's going to be squad rotation anyway. I almost feel like the yellow card he got, maybe he wasn't all that broken up about it Saturday night because it was going to happen at some point. So get it out of the way now when there's going to be squad rotation. I think it'll be fine. But a lot of people not happy in the chat room about the yellow card accumulation rules.
Yeah, the timing, I agree, is right. But the one thing that I don't understand is he's rightly earned some yellows for some, not so smart plays. But for me, this wasn't even a yellow. There was a few minutes later, a Charleston player kind of did the same thing to Alache, I think. And I mean, he got whistled for a foul, but there was no card. So that just wasn't even a yellow for me.
How about I open hand slap you in the face and you tell me it's a yellow or not? No,
Me?
you didn't get the joke. I'm joking. It was open hands. The guy open-handed the guy. I mean, yeah, it might have been like not completely intentional, but you hit a guy in the face, and pretty much every time you do that, you're going to get called for something like that. So I don't love it, but I can see it. I'm basically just saying I disagree with you, Rob. Yeah, it's okay though.
And Kevin McCloskey made a good point during the broadcast. He said if that's in the chests, we're not talking about a yellow card. Regardless, he's going to sit out this one against Atlanta United. Coming up here in about 10 minutes or so, 12 minutes or so, we're going to visit with Taylor Denman from the Gwinnett. Of course, I don't have it off the top of my head. Gwinnett Daily Post. Did I get it right?
Yeah, kid.
Gwinnett Daily Post to preview Atlanta United 2 coming up here in just a few moments. But before we do that, it's that time of the show where we give a big shout out to our tremendous supporters. So first and foremost, we have to give it up to Tim Bronsel with King's Hammer. We thank you for your support. Matt Adamczyk, Mama Subs, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Mike Hudson, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Jesse Gill, Kathleen Francis, Jesse King, Teresa Everidge, Matt Imholt. Yes, Liverpool is superior to Man U. Did you see that garbage over the weekend? You win, Matt. You win. And then last but not least, Segan Sagai. So thank you very much for your support. If you want to support the show, you can head over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support to find out how you can do just that. As we mentioned earlier in the show, our own Rob Pierce was there at training today down at Nippert Stadium. Rob, why don't you fill us in on what all went down there?
I have a few things that I can go over. injury status and squad rotation, and then maybe something we'll get to a little bit later about Fernando Adi. Injury status, Evan Newton, Deco Kanon, and Danny Koenig all practiced today. They were all in workouts. Alan Koch said that they all made it through 100%, but he needed to check with the medical staff before, saying whether or not they were going to make the trip. Richie Ryan still has a little ways to go. He was jogging around the pitch, but his match fitness needs a little bit more time. So in the short term, at least, we won't be seeing him in the 18. But Alan Koch said he was hoping it won't be long. Pa Kanate is very close, but not quite there yet. I get the feeling that with some squad rotation, we may see him on Saturday, but I don't think for Wednesday if we take anything that Koch said there. Matt Boehner had what was termed an apparent leg injury this morning at the end of practice. Nobody's exactly knew as practice concluded what happened, what it was, how serious it was. That wasn't addressed. They probably needed to go in and look at it. Over to squad rotation. Koch indicated that there will be some squad rotation. Obviously, when you have 3 matches in 8 days, that's going to happen. He didn't give specifics, but he did say that rotation would be dictated by fitness and where players are at in the stage of their careers. If you do the math, that kind of hints at Michael Lahoud, Deco Kanon, Danny Koenig, Evan Newton being rotated in and out, possibly Justin Hoyt, but that's speculation.
I'd like to think there's going to be some squad rotation. Blake Smith deserves a break. He's played a ton of minutes there at left back for FC Cincinnati. I think he's earned it with it, not only with his play, but man, just the sheer amount of minutes he's played. So hopefully we get to see Pa Kanate get some time there for FC Cincinnati here in the next couple of matches. Let's talk a little bit about Fernando Adi. Had some interesting comments regarding the turf, Rob, and you kind of followed up with him a little bit today.
Yeah, if you caught Laurel Fowler's story from WCPO last week, Adi kind of expressed some frustration at the pitch, and his comments weren't taken all that great on social media. I don't knock Laurel at all for the story, but she did her job and she did it well. But from my own perspective, this is what Adi had to say to me today. He said, "For me, it's the pitch." These are direct quotes here. Training on the turf. I think I spoke a lot about it. About that, he's referring to Laurel's story. He says, "I play 20 minutes, but I go after the game, and my back is hurting, my whole body's hurting. That's just something we need to figure out a way to manage." If we're training on grass and playing on turf, it's a little bit different. But training on turf and playing on turf, for me, that's the hardest part. And sometimes I'm very discouraged, but that's where we are as a club, and we just have to take that reality and manage it. Again, on social media, he's coming off as a complainer. And again, this is not a knock on Laura at all. She did a great job with her story. It's just kind of a real honest assessment by Fernando Adi. But I don't get the impression that he's a complainer at all. He was kind of joking a little bit with us after practice, and he was kind of, he would kind of laugh at some of the questions. I just think it's an honest assessment, and I just don't think he likes turf in general, no matter where it is. And there was some additional speculation that he might not fit in that great with the club, and that, again, that's not the impression that I got. He mentioned Deco Kanon, Nas, Lahoud, all making him feel welcome in the group. And he mentioned the team as a whole. He said, everybody is doing anything that they can to make sure he and Alashe and Kanate are all welcome in the club. So, I mean, to say that he doesn't fit in, I would discard that. That's my take.
So is this turf story much ado about nothing, Bri?
I'm ready for that one. I think that's just going to be something we deal with over the next 2 years. People are they're always going to complain about it, whether it's right, fair, untrue, whatever. There's been studies that show that turf can contribute to certain injuries and not others. There's studies that say that turf actually helps in certain ways. So I just think it's the general consensus of the soccer or the international soccer community that turf's bad, but I think it's going to be rectified with this training program. And guess what? I think that once Adi gets that first moment of glory, scoring that first goal, all those little injuries will start fading away. I mean, and you see it right now, like what you just mentioned with fitting in Rob, is you can see it already working with Nas and Adi. The last 15 minutes of the game, he just missed slipping it by the keeper. He just missed chipping the keeper. And if that own goal doesn't kick off Skylar Thomas, that falls to Adi and it goes in. So I think it's all going to be fine, but it's just, right now there's just little issues like this that he's going to have to figure out the rest of the year. And guess what, guys? As much as we want Adi to come in and score a goal every game in USL, he's here for next year. And that's the real goal in this whole deal.
Yeah. And look, it is what it is. I mean, they're not going to be playing on grass anytime soon, not till the new stadium there in the West End. So at this point, it's...
Well, I think the training's the bigger issue right now, but yeah.
Yeah.
Training every day on that stuff.
Especially from a budget standpoint. I mean, think about where the club would be right now if they were having to practice, all day on a grass pitch. I mean, we're getting a ton of rain here in the month of August for Ohio, which is kind of weird. So you got to do it for budgetary purposes just to keep your fields in good shape. So it is what it is. I mean, I don't even know if there's anything else we can really add to that, Joseph. I did see over the weekend that complainer from Liverpool, Steven Gerrard, was also talking about fake pitches over in England, or over in Scotland. But do you make much of this whole turf thing, or is it, like I said, much ado about nothing?
I don't make a whole lot of it. I mean, I appreciate his honesty, even though it's not the answer some people wanted to hear. But I'm happy he came to play in USL this year. I don't know if that was a requirement. It was my understanding that it wasn't. But the fact that he wanted to come to Cincinnati or came to Cincinnati to play and help us in this title push makes me really excited. So if that's for 30 minutes off the bench, great. If that's for a full start, great. And if he wants to be honest when people ask him a question in the media, great. I mean, I think he's an adult. He doesn't need to sugarcoat it. And it's not like as Brian said, we're 2 years away. It's not like there isn't a future site that we're going to have the facilities needed to host players like these. Just maybe not right this moment.
I guess I'm a little surprised too, because obviously Portland, they've got turf there at their stadium, and they get a ton of rain up there too, so they almost have to. But I don't know. I guess I was surprised, and I guess maybe we're hearing some things that maybe the turf is going to be replaced. I don't know. The way I look at it is everybody's got to play on it. Hopefully he'll be able to get through it. We don't want him being injured on it, of course, but we'll see what happens. I think the bigger story was to me the bigger story was the fitting in part, and it sounds like the guys really have done a good job of welcoming me in, Rob.
Yeah, I'm going to have something in the next couple days to that effect. I got to talk to quite a few players at practice today. Deco Kanon, Corbin Bone, Kenny Walker, and Adi, and there's somebody else I'm missing, Blake Smith. So just stay tuned in the next couple days, and I'll have something put together along those lines of how he's fitting into the team.
So make sure you stay tuned over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Rob doing an excellent job there covering training today. So, Rob, we appreciate you being down there. We know it's a big week for FC Cincinnati. They hit the road to take on Atlanta United 2 coming up on Wednesday. And joining us now on the Kings Hammer hotline is Taylor Denman from the Gwinnett Daily Post. He joins us now. And, Taylor, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being with us. Give us a little rundown on what exactly Atlanta United 2 has been up to since they last faced FC Cincinnati.
Hey guys, well, yeah, thanks for having me on. Atlanta United 2 is, well, they've been kind of up to, I guess, what they were at the beginning of the season after that first win against Red Bulls 2. It's been kind of tough for this team to come by wins, but a couple points, a point in a kind of an odd game against Ottawa, where they made up the second half of a match from about a month ago. They had even played on a different pitch in that match, but coming off a loss to Charleston Battery, which it's been a little over a week since that game, but that match was Charleston scored a late goal in the first half. It's another one of a slew of matches for Atlanta United 2 where you think, well, maybe if they just held on a little bit longer here, or there's one mistake there that, you kind of speculate things like that. But obviously, when you're dealing with MLS2 teams, you've got some really young teams here, and I think you can probably expect to see more of the same on Wednesday as well. Young lineup for Atlanta United 2.
Hey Taylor, Brian here, man. Thanks for coming on the big show versus March to Match Day this time, man. Appreciate you taking your time.
Yeah, of course. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, one of the big questions, I'm going to hit the home run right off the bat here. How's Mitch Hildebrandt? Are we going to see him? Has there been talk about him? I know he's featured quite a bit lately, but what's your original take there?
I asked Scott about this specifically for you guys. So, unfortunately, not a ton of clarity, but he's available. So I kind of feel like Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber right here. So you're telling me there's a chance. But to be honest, we've got a midweek match when the first team, there's no really, it's not going to overlap with the first team. You'll sometimes tend to see Alec Kahn, the backup goalkeeper for Atlanta United, start these matches. But Hildebrandt has had some starts. He started against that game against Ottawa. That was his most recent start, and maybe just in the interest of giving him minutes that there's a chance. But it's sort of up in the air. When I bring up Mitch Hildebrandt, Scott Donnelly mentions Alec Kahn, so that kind of makes me gravitate towards, well, maybe they're just trying to keep Kahn since he's technically the number 2 goalkeeper, trying to keep him fresh. But I won't rule anything out. I think there's good possibility that you guys see your old friend Mitch Hildebrandt back there.
They're both very good goalkeepers. A lot of quality there in Atlanta. So, real quick, since we've played last, I know you featured on some of the results, but what has changed in Atlanta? I mean, we've seen them drop in the table a little bit. What's been the X factor in their play?
Well, so I think when the first meeting between Cincinnati and Atlanta, Atlanta was actually coming out with an unorthodox formation compared to what they typically rolled out with. They had a 3-man back line in that match, and I think you'll probably see them shift back to the 4-man back line, which is the first team's been sort of going back and forth between formations there, but I think for the most part, the USL side is going to stay with that 4-man back line. Also, an academy standout in that back line last time, and you had guys like Chris Goslin, Andrew Carlton, who were really only played a handful of professional games at that point. Now they're almost had a full season under their belt. A few additions here or there. Mike Ambrose, one of the guys who started against Cincinnati previously, is actually out for the season with a knee injury, which unfortunately he was pressed into service when Greg Garza for the first team came out. So they're really kind of searching for some depth along that back line. But a few signings here or there, a guy from the academy named Alessandro Castro, who's been getting some regular minutes. You'll probably see possibly a guy that they signed last week named Tyler Ruthven, another guy they seem to like signing guys from Atlanta. So it's an Alpharetta native, a suburb from around here. So maybe he'll make his debut, maybe not. It's only been a week since he's been training there. But for the most part, I think you'll probably see John Gallagher, who scored Atlanta United's first goal against Cincinnati in that match, I believe. And there's a good chance maybe you see some of those more of those young guys, Carlton, Joseph Samuel, possibly Goslin, maybe even Wheeler Amanu. I saw him training today, guys like that.
We're hanging out with Taylor Denman from the Gwinnett Daily Post, who covers Atlanta United 2 here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. And Taylor, I go back to that first game against FC Cincinnati at Nippert Stadium, and one of the guys that stood out to me was Laurent Kissidou. Had a fantastic goal in that match. Where has he been? Is he still with the 2 squad, or will we see him feature maybe on Wednesday night?
Yeah, he's been sort of dealing with, I guess, like off and on injuries, so we haven't seen him for a little while, but he's been, he's been on the sideline and lately in the 18, so just whether or not he'll be available is, I guess, sort of even maybe a day before the match decision. No ultra clarity on that, but he's really looked very confident. He's another guy who comes from Man United system, just a system that's, academy that's really producing a lot of great goal scorers and guys who produce offensively. So he's definitely been super fun to watch this year. And especially that goal in Cincinnati, which I think was his first professional one, that's kind of been the confidence boost for the kid, and he's definitely fun to watch.
Now, I've seen a lot of some of these scores that you've seen with Atlanta. You concede 6 goals versus New York, you concede 4 versus Bethlehem, and then you come out and have some great results. You concede 1 versus Ottawa, 1 versus Richmond. What's been what has been the reason in those different results for Atlanta this year? Well,
Atlanta is obviously trying to mimic the first team style of play as best as possible. So when you throw young players into the mix, and I actually have a story up on this today, that there are sometimes lapses, and that particularly shows on counterattacks. And I think Cincinnati, at least 2 of those goals I remember from that first game were off a couple of counterattacks where Atlanta's trying to launch an attack. There's a lapse, and all of a sudden Cincinnati's streaking down the field and Atlanta's trying to catch up. That sometimes is the case with, I remember, match against Charleston. Atlanta dominates possession the entire game, but, you have Gordon Wild streaking and crazy, he gets a couple goals, and then all of a sudden the tide of the match is totally turned within the span of 10 to 15 minutes. So really, you're going to see Atlanta try to keep possession and sit and try to kind of launch, I guess we can say, long-winded attacks, but really what's been killing them is just the counterattacks, guys slightly out of position, a little communication error or something like that. And, there's growing pains. That's what this team is for. So it's been, as far as results-wise, tough, but, the Scott Donnelly and his crew is really just trying to get these young guys, let them take their lumps here. And then when we go to MLS, they're for the better for it.
Yeah, but in kind of what we said on March to Match Day last time, there's still a lot of quality with these young guys. And, we saw with Kissidou's goal and even Carlton's service that, if they can get just one good opportunity, they can punish even some of the best teams.
Yeah, definitely. I think, in MLS side, Carlton's, that guy's really confident and saw some quality minutes in the homegrown game, and then he's seen some more and more minutes, and even had his first start with Atlanta United 2. And, Lados Kunga, I think a guy who subbed on mid-match against Cincinnati, he's the guy who's grown more and more confident. George Bello, who was recently in the 18, who's kind of been another guy on that back line who's sort of been thrust into service because of all these injuries with the first team. He's sort of working his way back fitness-wise, and just at 16 years old, he's making such an impact with this club. So, yeah, there's plenty of young guys that I think, when you bring these guys up with Tata Martino, head coach of the first team, or Scott Donnelly, they say, minutes. It's just all about trying to find time for all these kids who, just need that experience.
Well,
and definitely Cincinnati is a great club to get experience against going MLS side now.
That's a good point. Well, Taylor, we appreciate you spending some time with us here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We kind of treated this as a little March to Match Day, a little mini version. So I'm going to do my best Brian Weigel impression and ask for a prediction for Wednesday night's match.
Ooh, I'm going to go ahead and give a Cincinnati win. I think that's pretty safe. But if you're going score, let's say 3-1. I think I think Cincinnati might have been offsides on one of those goals last time. So maybe the last score should have been 3-2, but maybe the Atlanta United will only score one goal today. So let's go 3-1, or Wednesday rather.
Fantastic. Well, Taylor, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Go check him out over at the Gwinnett Daily Post. He does a great job covering Atlanta United 2 down there. Appreciate the time, Taylor. We'll hope to speak with you again soon.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
It's Taylor Denman joining us on the King's Hammer Hotline here on our own little version. It's a little mini version of March to Match Day. Bri, thanks for letting us be a part of that.
Well, we'll have another one this week with the guys from the unused subs. So double dose, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I like it. How pumped are you? Or maybe pump's not the right word, but how much do you want FC Cincinnati to face Mitch Hildebrandt on Wednesday night, Bri?
Not at all.
Really?
I don't want him to. I don't want there to be like, I want to show these buggers, or I want to prove Alan Koch wrong, or all these different things. Like I don't even want him in the building.
Okay, I mean that's one way to look at it, because we have seen in years past when he has kind of been tested, he's come up big. I go to the Fire game, played out of his mind, right? Obviously had a point to prove that night. But how about you, Joseph? Do you want to see FC Cincinnati take on Mitch Hildebrandt?
I can take it or leave it. I don't think anybody should have any ill will. I think it'd be cool from their perspective to play somebody who is your brother in arms, so to speak, for the last season. But no, I'm kind of with Brian on this one, actually. There's just something I don't want to put a prediction out there that's going to jinx us, but there's just something that, one, I don't want him to be on the right side of a result that he plays a key part in, and two, I don't want him to get his brains beaten in either. I'm sure there's a happy medium that's very possible, but either one of those two outcomes would disappoint me greatly. One more than the other, obviously, but I still feel for the guy. He still has a special place in my heart.
I don't know, Rob. Don't you kind of want to have that feeling of, Mitch Hildebrandt grabbing the ball out of the back and then after Ledesma just scores a golazo against him, just that look of, oh my gosh, what just happened?
Bad example there, Subes. Ledesma's not playing.
Oh. All right, I meant Fernando Adi. Dang you, Brian Weigel. Dang you, Brian Weigel. Fine. Or Danny Koenig. Yes. Oh, jeez. Yeah. What do you say, Rob?
I think that would definitely, especially for Adi, that would be a great moment. I'm kind of with the rest of you. I can take it or leave it. What I will say is that I kind of wish that he could have been able to play up here in Cincinnati, just to kind of, I don't know, from a fan's perspective, give him an ovation for the previous 2 years. But in terms of on the field and goals and stuff like that, I'm with you guys. I could take it or leave it.
Jeff Tebbets on Facebook says he'd rather face Mitch. He hasn't looked good in his most recent games. So,
know what I really want to see in that baseball field? I want to see, like, apparently I keep seeing all these people, FC Cincinnati fans, saying they're going to go to the game. And I want, like, if Mitch plays, I want all of them to sit right behind his goal and just let him have it. Just because I think it'd be hysterical to see. I think he'd respect it as well. But, yeah, I don't want to deal with him. I think we're in a better off position right now without him. And even though he's a great guy, he was a great keeper in his time. But, yeah. So we'll see what happens, but all that matters is we can get 3 points. I don't care who we play.
Yeah, of course we're going to have this discussion about facing Mitch Hildebrandt and watch him not even play. So,
as you said, Alec Khan's still pretty darn good too. If they have him going, the only nice part about this game is I just doubt we see like the Romario Williamses of the world, some of the guys that might float back and forth, because Atlanta plays Friday, so they're not going to want even their guys who are in their 18 or maybe even like their top 20, 21 guys playing on a Wednesday night right before their home match. So I think it's a home match. It could be a away match. I got to double check, but yeah, you get my point.
Yeah, but either way, it should be a fun match on Wednesday night. FC Cincinnati going on the road, first time taking on Atlanta United 2 there in hot. Do they still say Hotlanta? Do the youngsters still say Hotlanta, Joseph?
It's Gwinnett.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Man, Brian's just on point tonight.
I think you're bringing it back, Subes, actually.
Man, I just can't go wrong. I give up. Maybe that's the cue to get out of here tonight as we begin to wrap things up here on CST. Make sure you go subscribe to the show on iTunes. We're also on Google Podcasts. Basically, anywhere you can find podcasts, make sure you go get subscribed. It's that way you don't miss cool things like March to Match Day coming up later on this week with the Unused Substitutes. Great Tampa Bay podcast. So go check that out. Of course, get supporting the show. CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support is where you can do that. Get involved in the Growler Cup, which we're still doing here. We've got a nice little battle heading down the stretch of the regular season, so go check that out. And last but not least, this weekend's a big weekend for CST because it is the 3rd annual Cincinnati Soccer Talk Foot Golf Classic presented by Joseph Auto Group. It's a great fundraiser we do every year for Sports Games for Kids, which is Tom Grabo's foundation that he's got going on there. It's at Woodland Golf Course coming up 3 o'clock, August 25th, this Saturday. It's $200 for your foursome. You can still get entered. It's not too late. Maybe you want to play as a single golfer, and we'll team you up. That's $45 if you're a single golfer. So go get registered over at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/footgolf.
People are still looking for extras, so if you want to play, email us. We'll figure out a way to get you on the course.
Yeah, and don't even need to email us. Just get registered. Go to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/footgolf. It's that easy. We've got some great prizes, good raffle prizes coming up this upcoming Saturday. Like I said, it's a great fundraiser for Sports Games for Kids. Tom Grabo does a great job with that, and we certainly enjoy the event. CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/footgolf, and of course our thanks to Joseph Auto Group for their tremendous support of this event this year. All right, final thoughts as we begin to wrap up. I'll throw it over to Yosef Sagai. Yosef, thanks so much for being with us this week. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. My final thought touches on something you alluded to earlier. Goes out to our Growler Cup participants. Wanted to give a few shout-outs. So thanks to everybody who's been submitting predictions. If I'm annoying you with the emails, then you feel free to tell me to stop if you don't want to participate. So in first, we have AJ Stork, and then Tom Grabo moved into a tie for first this week. Second, we have Patrick Lowney and Reese Johnson, and then tied for second. And then third, Mike Bowman. Wolfman still leading all CS tiers with 60 points. But I wanted to touch on Reese Johnson just because, and I asked him before I outed him, just because his strategy is so interesting. And this goes back since he started supporting. He's picked 2-1 for every match.
Oh, you're killing him.
I emailed him and asked if it was okay to say this on the air. So he leads just this year because we've been so good. He's in second place, poised for victory. Now, Tom and AJ, if I see you going to the 2-1 route to just cover your behinds and hold your 1-point lead, I'm gonna out you for that too. But I doubt they'll do that. But it's funny, and thanks for being the easiest slot to fill in on the Excel spreadsheet each week, Reese. So
you cracked me up, Joseph. Thanks for doing the Growler Cup stuff this year. We do appreciate it, and make sure you give a big. I know you're going to see your mom this weekend. Make sure you give her a big CST hug for us, will you?
Okay. Specifically from you, she'll appreciate it more if it's not coming from me. So
yes, it's from me. We'll give her the new nickname of Mama Sagai. How's that?
Okay.
So thank you very much, Mama Sagai, for supporting us wearing the armband for this episode. Let's send it over now to Rob Pierce. Rob, your final thoughts as we get out of here?
My final thoughts. I'm going to get a bit personal with my final thoughts, and it doesn't have much to do with soccer. Our family received some sad news this weekend. On Saturday morning, my grandmother, Imogene Parker, died at the age of 96. 96. I won't give you her full biography or anything like that, but I'll tell you a few things. I took my first steps in her house in Batavia That's obviously something I don't remember. But what I do remember is that she loved to play cards, especially canasta. She was full of sass, sharp as a tack, all the way to her final day. She was a big Reds fan. Just last Saturday, she asked me if I saw the game the night before when I went to see her, and I told her that I hadn't, and then she told me all about it. She was never much into soccer. She was all about baseball. But once I joined CST, every time I saw her, she'd always ask about FC Cincinnati and how they're doing, and she'd ask what I had written recently. She lived a full life, and we'll miss her, and that's my final thought. Well
said, Rob. And of course, our thoughts are with you and your family as well, in tough times. So, yeah, I always hear that about grandparents who are big baseball fans. It seemed like they seem to know every single box score for every game. That always impresses me.
Yeah, she could rattle off the stats like nobody else. It must be something about that generation where you grow up and you're listening to the game on the radio, or you're tuning into the big game of the week. But she loved her Reds.
Are we going to be like in 96 years with our kids talking about 52% possession stats and clean sheets?
Wouldn't that be something? I sure hope so.
Yes. Good stuff, Rob, and appreciate you again being down at practice today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And last but not least, Brian Weigel. Final thoughts?
Prayers to you, buddy. Can't wait to play some foot golf this week. This weekend's going to be a great time. A lot going on around FC Cincinnati, guys. A lot of things are changing. I know there's been some discontent on certain things, but we're growing. Everything's getting better. Times are rough. But just remember, this is our hobby. We love being here. This isn't the end of the world, regardless if things go either way. But just appreciate everybody that's been around in this crazy journey still. And if you can come out to foot golf, help us make a difference, and just keep doing what we love doing together, and making this a big happy family right now. So let's keep it up, and we'll see you Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a good event, so make sure you go check it out. Bri, as always, I appreciate your efforts, even though I know you're a busy guy yourself too.
These kids, man, they get me.
Speaking of kids, my final thought: my kids have kicked off the fall soccer season. Just started training last week, and so this weekend we will be heading to our first soccer tournament up in Michigan for the year. And so I'm wearing my shirts. I don't know if you can see, for those of you listening to the podcast, you can't see it, but my shirt says, "I'm not yelling. This is just my soccer coach voice." So this was given to me from Tim Toflinski, one of the parents and one of the girls I coached last spring. And this is going to be a weird year for me, not coaching for the first time in 3 years. So I'm going to be that crazy parent on the sideline, biting his lip, doing whatever I can to not scream and holler at my kids to get them going. It's going to be tough, a little transition for me, but really excited to see where things lead for my children. By the way, they're playing at the same club that Evan Lee used to play at. So that's kind of cool. They've got a little FCC connection there. So, okay, Brian has a lot.